I am Tara Jaramillo, and this is my podcast called The Monster Within. This podcast is based off of my experiences in being married to a narcissist and surviving domestic violence abuse. Please note and take care that the subject matter that I discuss may be triggering. I am dedicated to do this podcast in hopes of bringing awareness to abuse, domestic violence, and narcissistic behavior, in hopes that maybe I save someone's life. After I moved to Baraboo, I started working at Stoughton, again, an hour or so away drive from Baraboo, and found out that we were expecting our first child about April, May of 2015. And I was shocked. I was really shocked and surprised. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're just living in this little apartment. How are you going to do all this? And I thought, well, I guess this is life. And at that same time, Juan told me, I want to try a little bit more for a job that gives me a little bit more of a challenging, getting a little bored at the clinic. And so he applied for a job at the UW-Madison Hospital as IR technologist, and he got it. And so he said, why don't we look to moving to Madison? And so we started house hunting, and we found a house on the east side of Madison. And I was so proud of it. It's your first house that you're buying. It's, our family's coming together. We're having a little baby, and we got a dog at that same time, Maggie. She was kind of a bulldog, a pit bull bulldog mix, and I loved her. I truly adored her, and I thought, oh gosh, everything's coming together. This is wonderful. And life was good. We moved into our new house, and when I look back at those times, I don't understand where Juan, this good person, is that cared and took care of us and loving and was fun to be around, fun of our new house, how we're hosting Thanksgivings and Packer parties, and where that person went to the ending, which I'm going to share with you all. But it's very hard as a survivor to really peel back these layers and think, where is this person? Who were they truly? Were they the nice person that was, kept their facade for years? Was that truly them? I don't have the answers to those questions. In December, I had a little bit of preeclampsia, so they had to induce me, and it was like a 2-day induction into having a baby, our first one. And it was a very long labor. I was super excited. All those first time feels of being a mom, the anxiety of here you have a little person, how am I going to take care of them? And after a 3-day stay, we got to take Natasha home. And I just remember driving. It was just kind of a slushy, snowy kind of afternoon. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I hope we make it home. And we lived like 10 minutes away. And Juan was this doting father, this taking care of me and Natasha. And it was just the three of us trying to get used to our newfound family. About 5 days after getting released, I started feeling really sick. I actually got to the point where I couldn't get out of bed anymore. So Juan and I had to take our little newborn, and we went to the Meriter Hospital, and it turned out that I had appendicitis. And so I ended up staying in the hospital and had surgery for about 5 days. And during that time, Juan would visit and cared about me. And I felt really sad. I just thought, oh my gosh, what if I never get out and see my child? And this whole time that we're supposed to be bonding, and here I am in the hospital. And when I was released after those 5 days, I seen that Juan and Natasha had a whole routine that I was not part of. And I kind of felt like the third wheel, but he took such good care of Natasha, and he took good care of me. Everything was going well. We then, after that little hiccup of being in the hospital, we became a family of 3, and life was so good. We went different places. We did all the first with Natasha, and it was just such a wonderful experience. Those times were so great when I think back on them, how much fun we had, how much family we had around us, and it just was such a different experience. As we started later on, I had got a job as well at the UW Madison, and Juan and I could drive together, and it was about a 45-minute drive, even though we lived 10 minutes away, 10, 15. Because of the traffic it took and dropping, our new baby off at daycare, it took about 45 minutes. And as a mom, I just was feeling kind of conflicted, especially being an X-ray. You don't have flexible start times. You sometimes stay over if a patient, needs you. And it just was kind of feeling like hard as a mom and kind of conflicting. And I wanted something different. And at the time, I probably didn't realize that, I went into X-ray because, again, my dad told me to go to a trade school, and I went to a trade school, and maybe it wasn't the job that I really wanted or had my heart really fully in it. And Juan had decided as well, like, he liked the challenge of his role, but it was getting very hectic very fast, especially having a child. It was very busy. And it was hard. Someone had to be home with the newborn, or if she got sick, and babies get sick a lot. And a lot of times we were both trying to figure out who was staying home. And around our area, even though we lived in kind of a middle class area, a nice area, there was starting to be like robberies that were happening to businesses, houses, restaurants. And we thought, oh, I don't really like how close this is. And we started really noticing our drive and what we wanted to do. We wanted to kind of move to a little of a quieter area. And so we started kind of looking for jobs, and there was a position for an IR technologist in Green Bay. And there was also a CT X-ray job for a clinic up there as well. And I was pregnant with my second child at this point. And he goes, I think we got to move somewhere else. I think it's time. So we ended up moving to Green Bay, and I loved my house up there. It was ranch. It just felt like home. It was beautiful. I was able to have a garden, where Madison was very busy. We didn't have a garden. We didn't have a big yard. Green Bay felt like a breath of fresh air. We later bought a camper. It just felt more like home and more efficient. My second one, was born then on June 8th of 2017. So we moved up there probably end of March, April, and then we stayed at a little apartment until we could find a house that we liked. And so I had my child, the second one, on June 8th of 2017, and like 2 weeks later, we moved into our new house. And so life was very busy, becoming a family of 4, trying to adjust to a new jobs, new area. And for a while, things were good. Things were I liked where I worked. I liked where we were. We found a nice daycare for the children. It was across town, but it was healthy and good for them. And I felt very proud of where we were. But shortly after having my second child, I became very sick, very ill, very fast. I was tired. I couldn't sleep at night. And the ickiest part was that I had just a really bad stomach. I could barely eat anything. I was just very sick. And so I was dealing with that a lot. And at the time, I didn't really notice how much I was becoming the single parent. My first child was a very easy baby. She slept sometimes till 9, 10 a.m. She was just easygoing. My second one was up every 2 to 3 hours, did not like her bed, didn't like the playpen, so you had to get really creative. And the truth is, she just wanted to be on mom. And I loved it, but at the same time, sometimes you need to put them down. And so a lot of times I was the one staying up with her at night or getting her. I was also the one, anytime she needed something, or both of them, it started to really change. My relationship with Juan changed. We got married in September of 2017, so a few months short of having Mia. We got married. And I remember thinking, like, is this the best idea? And I just, looking back, there's been these little intuition moments that were not very loud, but they were a little challenging. Like I should have paid attention, and I didn't. I didn't realize after I got married to Juan how my life would change. And ended up he essentially probably felt like he got me. Like I was kept. I couldn't leave very easily now. And he started to loosen his guard. He drank a lot more for a while there. He was within means and could control it. It became very out of control very quickly. Right before Christmas, Juan went out with his coworkers. They were celebrating a new product launch or something kind of big within the department. And he was only 5 minutes from our house. And I remember him looking at me and saying, "Well, you just pick me up before you get the girls." And he was there at the bar already at 2:30 p.m. and I didn't leave until 4:30. And I said, "Juan, I don't think that's appropriate. We're going to go get our children from daycare. I don't think you should be smelling like alcohol. Like, I don't think that's the responsible thing to do." And he got mad and he told me, "Well, fine, whatever. I'll stay here then." And I got home. I cooked supper for the girls, did all our nightly duties and put them into bed. And around 10, 11, Juan comes home and he's pretty drunk. And I just remember him being so angry at me because I wouldn't pick him up and I left him there. And I said, "Juan, we have children now. Like, you are an adult. You can take care of yourself and you don't have to go to a bar and get drunk. You can come home. You lived 5 minutes away. Like, you should be responsible enough to be able to get home." And that comment made him really upset. And I just remember him flying kind of into this rage, yelling at me, fighting with me. And I just said, "I want to go to bed." And he wouldn't let me go to bed. He'd argue with me. And at one point, and I'm not sure how it all happened. I just remember he was arguing with me and I think he kicked like a gun that we had underneath our bed. And he's like, "Oh, shoot, look what you made me do," or something. And I said, "Those guns are becoming a problem. You have those loaded." And I don't remember the reason why, but I came from a family. I grew up where you put your guns in a safe and you don't keep them loaded. And Juan came from a total different family. And I said, "The littles are crawling and it's only a matter, I hope they never touch those guns. Like, it's only a matter of time." And I remember him looking at me, getting angry, grabbing the 2 guns. There were shotguns that were loaded underneath our bed. And I just remember him having those tops of the guns through his fingers and just swinging them. And he was acting really bizarre, yelling at me, shouting at me. And then he locks himself in the bathroom. And I said, "Juan, you have to open the door." Like, it almost got into strange. And I said, "You have to open the door." He wouldn't. He was in there for the longest time. I didn't know if he was going to shoot himself or, accidental firing off of the weapon. I would never forgive myself if it hit one of my children. So I called 911 because I have no idea what's going on. I just felt so scared. And my gut was like plummeting. Like, it was like something is wrong here. And so, unfortunately, I had about 20 or 25 officers swarm my house. The SWAT team was on its way. That was very embarrassing afterwards. But at the same time, it kind of raised a flag to me because what happened? And I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have any help. I didn't know what a women's community was. I didn't know that I'm kind of the start of a domestic violence episode or kind of the beginning of this. I didn't know. And of course, the trauma bond and the confusion, having small kids, trying to keep my family together. I mean, it was very, very hard at that time. And looking back, that should have been a wake-up call. That should have been a time to get out, leave. But I didn't see that sign at that time. And I've regretted that for a long time and felt really bad because we worked for the same organization and the same boss. It was so humiliating to have this all come through. So Juan got arrested. He yelled at me through the whole time that the police were arresting him. He basically said it was my fault, that he was drinking and that this had happened. And he blamed me. And it was just so, I remember crying. There's cops all over my house searching it, making sure, grabbing the weapons that he had locked himself in the bathroom with. And then my youngest woke up because she's a light sleeper. And I just remember her being like shocked. She was like, "Who are all these people?" And we had Christmas without him. My family came and helped me. My daughter turned 2, my oldest one turned 2 without him. And it just was this really yucky feeling. Part of it too is I just got married in September, like it was barely 2 months, and I just felt, and this is maybe more pressure than I should have ever put on myself, but I didn't want to be in a failure marriage. I didn't know what was going on. I felt like I was the black sheep of the family. My dad would have been like, "See, I told you so." And it hurts. Like, why is it that those comments hurt so bad when something is so toxic? You probably should leave and you don't realize how this is going to affect the rest of your life. And that's one regret that I have, looking back, that I should have left, that I should have realized where this was going and who Juan was becoming. 3 days later, and Juan was able to come back home. He did get a domestic charge on him, and he told me that he loved me, which I believed. Now looking back, it was just kind of a sad attempt to keep me. He promised that he wouldn't drink, and for about a year and a half, he didn't. He did not drink, and I thought maybe he was going to change a new leaf. And I was hoping, nobody wants to lose someone you love, your family, what you thought your future was going to be. It was devastating to me personally. That following year, we had to deal with a lot of the humiliation of our boss finding out, the people that we work with finding out, and that is very difficult. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And it just, you have to keep your head up while everyone is kind of looking down at you and talking about you. And I believed in my relationship and my marriage. I believed in Juan and I loved him. I believed in my family. And also during that time, my sickness gets worse. I start to get really sick into the new year. And by July, August, and I look back then too, why I let it go till July, August when I was having symptoms to just after my child was born. Why I didn't go in and get help. And I think I was in denial. I think I was trying to hold everything together for my family. And I was, again, that single mom that my kids needed. I was their main caretaker. And around end of July, early August, I finally get really sick. I couldn't get out of bed one day. I went to the ER earlier in the early morning. They sent me home and just said, "Oh, your stomach's inflamed, give it a little bit of rest." To that next morning, not being able to get out of bed and having to go back to the ER. And Juan was right there. He was supportive. He was doting. He took care of our 2 children. He, set up for both of our families to come and help. And during that time, I really thought that he loved me and he was willing to make this family work and he was going to do anything for us. Turns out in the month of August, I get diagnosed with Crohn's and I'm pretty devastated. I feel very sick and I can't eat anything. The doctors in Green Bay really didn't say very much. They didn't really, they were still trying to figure out my meds and seeing how far this is progressing. It was a very hard time for our family, having the 2 young children, having the episode that we did with Juan, and then kind of being in the middle of this disease that I didn't know what to do and couldn't eat, couldn't function. In the year of 2019, the start of it, Juan tells me he is not happy being in Green Bay again. And he mentions the episode that had happened with the police. And he said, I just feel like people are kind of judging me. I'm not happy with this. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't like my job. And at the time, I just thought, okay, he wants to move somewhere different. Now, when I look back, I think it was trying to get away from people that actually knew what happened. He had the same theme again, where some people liked him at this job and some people didn't. He was having difficulties with his boss. Things were kind of turbulent at that time. And so he got a job as a cath lab technologist at Aspirus in Wausau. And Juan and I know Wausau very well because we both went to school here. It's not far from Tomahawk and Rhinelander, where we grew up, and it's close to our families. I, for one, was really excited. I thought that this was going to be a good opportunity for me and my children, especially to have kind of babysitting and things like that very close. And I was excited. I was excited about the change. In April of 2019, we moved to Weston, which is close to the Wausau area. It's just outside of it. It's a suburb. And we move into this house, newly built Denyon home, which looking back now it wasn't a good house or a good company to buy from. They did a lot of shortcuts. But we were excited for the little time that we had that we found a house and ready to move in. It was 2 stories and it felt like a dream. And so I moved here without a job. I didn't have a job when we came. So I stayed home from April until July with my children. And that was a good time. It was a good, close bonding time. We had a lot of fun. Later on, Juan and I accidentally, around June or July, accidentally flooded our home. We had a refrigerator that had like the ice cubes and water, and we apparently didn't hook our tubing up right, and we ended up with over $10,000 worth of damage of flooding by accident. We didn't know. And I felt like we had really bonded, that we were close as a family. We were loving. We had a lot of fun. In July of that year, 2018, July, August, I went back to work as X-ray tech. And after being off for a little bit with my children, I really felt conflicted. I just felt like X-ray was not working for me anymore. I felt that I wanted to be home with my children. I felt that it was very hard to accommodate the work schedule that I had with the children. I would start at 7, and I was obviously the lowest one on the totem pole. And so I didn't get all the days off or the holidays off. And my heart was starting to really feel twisted. I really wanted to do something else. I didn't really care for the X-ray part of it. And I just was not a happy camper with it. I knew I needed to do something else. During that time, too, my health is starting to get kind of situated a little bit. I was seeing a new physician here in Wausau area, and my meds seem to be okay. I end up over Christmas with a kidney infection. And so Juan, again, the doting husband, comes in house with the kids. And I truly thought we were a loving family. And I thought he was turning to be more involved with the family and being a dad. And I look back at this time too. I mean, there were so many times, if he was less than a man, he would have never stepped up. And so I'm still shocked where it ends as I go along with the story here, where he didn't have to step up. I mean, yes, he was the father, but a lot of people would have, with a bad personality, would have just walked away, but he didn't. And that is what's so confusing to me, even now after everything has happened. Who is he really? I do not know. Like, again, can't answer these questions. So in the new year starts COVID. And so it finally hits around May or June in the Wausau area, where Marshfield Clinic had closed. And as X-ray techs, we've kind of, especially in the mammography department, we were kind of pushed back. So during that time, for about 8 or 12 weeks, and I would only go in randomly, just if a patient needed needs or anything like that, I got to be home with my children. And it was wonderful. It was like the break that I needed. It was an absolute joy. And we had such a great summer. Those 8 or 12 weeks were just wonderful for our family. Juan had to work, of course, but the girls and I was their main caretaker, and we went to so many parks. We got to enjoy. Life was fun. Even though the world was shut down, it still felt wonderful to be together, and that it was just so much fun. and it made it harder to return to work. Shortly after we came back to Marshfield Clinic, after the shutdown, I got a new job at Aspirus. So I worked again near Juan's department. We could drive into work together. Sometimes we couldn't if we were on different shifts, but it seemed to work out really great. We still had to be on precautions for COVID, but it felt nice to drop off the kids together in daycare, be together. And it felt like as a family, we were really connected and we were really enjoying our time. But I also noticed that I wasn't really that happy working in X-ray. The job was demanding. They're all demanding, especially during COVID. Every patient needs something. Staffing got tight. Doctors got more demanding. And I just really pulled at my heartstrings the times that I had off. And I had mentioned a few times to Juan that I'm wanting to do something different. I'm not happy with this career anymore. It just didn't feel like a right fit for me anymore. And he really pushed hard. He did not want me to quit at all. And unfortunately, at the end of December of 2021, I found out that I had cancer in my stomach. And it was a lymphoma. And unfortunately, the medication that I was taking for my Crohn's caused my stomach cancer. And I never in a million years saw that happening. I just thought it was my Crohn's acting up, and I complained to my doctor, and he checked me for gallbladder. He checked me for everything, and he thought, well, let's go in through a scope and check out your stomach. And after I had awakened, he told me that my stomach looked really weird, like it looked like a cobblestone. And I was a little worried. But I thought, with Crohn's disease, weird stuff happens all the time. I wasn't really too worried about it. And on December 27th of 2021, I found out that I had cancer in my stomach, lymphoma. And I was shocked. I just couldn't believe it. Of course, it's during that Christmas time. It's that frenzy of, doctors off, people off. And it was just really such a challenge. I just was in shock. I cried. I thought my kids would never have a mom to grow up with again. My husband being the doting husband, doing everything he can for me, loving me, telling me it's going to be okay. He even had tears in his eyes. And that January, I started treatment, found out that I had COVID, and our whole family had COVID. So, except for the girls, it was Juan and I. It was just so awful. Neither one of us could even stay up for long. Like, we had such stomach issues. We were sleeping, and then the girls had to be pulled out of school. And it was so challenging having two young girls that are not sick and then having two adults that are just like wanting to be like knocked out cold, because it was just awful. We just wanted to sleep. Couldn't ask family to help us because we didn't want to give them COVID. So it was a difficult time, and I was supposed to go in for my second treatment for immunotherapy, but because I found out I had COVID, I couldn't. Oh, it was so awful, and I worried that if I didn't get the treatment, that the cancer was going to come back, and I had to go through 8 of those treatments. And during that time as well, they did a whole PET scan. They found something like highlighting in my breast. And so I had to go in the department that I worked in. They had to do a biopsy, 3 of them. Luckily, nothing came back cancerous, but it was still kind of awkward. And during that time, I realized in 2022 that I really didn't want to do my job anymore. I just was really unhappy. And the cancer that I had really brought it out of me that, life needs to shift. And I could feel it for a while. For the last couple of years, I knew in my life something needed to switch.